Ramon Fernandez. Mayong hapon po.
Thank you, Joas. Maayong hapon from Cebu to all the 432 participants this afternoon and still continuing to grow. Maayong hapon kaninyong tanan. I'd like to welcome all of you to this sports summit, to this conversation. Thank you for joining us. No, we at the PSC believes that we cannot do this by ourselves. We need inputs from you guys. So after this, we can really chart a well-rounded program for our kids. No? Itong lahat na ginagawa natin ay para sa atletang Pilipino. No? Especially this year that in less than over a month, the Olympics will start and we will have a record number of participants, of athletes that qualified for the Olympics. Right now, we have, for your information, we have at least 19 athletes participating in the different disciplines. No? So this is some sort of a record breaker for the Philippines being able to send this match. No? So I hope you continue to support the sports programs of the PSC and of course the LGUs. Tinatawagan natin yung mga LGUs to come up with their own sports programs also, no? Because if you remember at the start of our administration, we went out to the localities, to the LGUs, and talk to them and convince them because we know for a fact that that's where the children lives in our communities, in our cities, in our towns and provinces. No? So nasa inyo yung mga kabataan na gusto nating himugin na pumasok sa sports. No? And we all know very much and we understand very much the importance of children getting involved in sports. Malalayo sila sa masasamang bisyo for one, no? And there are a lot more. Today's topic is about religion, no? I'm glad I would be listening also to find out, to learn from our speaker today, because it has some relationships. Sports and religion had some relationships, no? It can work together. In fact, 2 years ago in 2019, during the anniversary of the 498th year of the first Mass in the Philippines in Limasawa Island, we held a children's games there, participated by several hundreds of kids in commemoration of the first Mass in the Philippines. It was just sad that COVID came in. We couldn't do a big event last March 31. No? So again, welcome to this. And as I said, we need all your support. We need your cooperation to crop up with a sports program that is well thought of, well studied of. So again, thank you for joining. Good day to all.
Maraming salamat po. Daghang salamat sa ating PSC Commissioner Comon Fernandez, and just want to highlight ang sinabi po ni Com. No, we had also the PSC had some programs, especially ang ating children's games, no, sa Limasawa Island. Tama po yun, in celebration of the first Mass in the Philippines, and probably that would really also be a big help, also be a big insight din para sa mga participants natin that yung topic natin leaning din for that relationship. That being said, ang ating pong session today is one of the many lectures that we will be having for the first phase of the National Sports Summit. As said earlier, ang ito pong sports conversations will be presided over by recognized figures from the local to the international sports scene to deliver short lectures in the online conference format. And afterwards, an open forum will be facilitated to gather insights and views as synthesis for session. Kaya po, let me introduce to you ang ating pong topic for this afternoon. Our discussion today will spotlight the relationship of sports and religion and its most pronounced impact on the philosophy of modern sports through the various beliefs across nations. And the ating pong lecture would also give a glimpse on new developments that helped create a shift which brought sports and religious practices together, and the development of the ethical value in promoting sports, especially in terms of promoting fair play, sportsmanship, while building the moral character and leadership of youth. And ang ating pong guest speaker finished in sociology at the Ateneo de Davao University, an MS in University of the Philippines, Diliman, and was granted PhD in Humanities by Xavier, sa Xavier University po. No? Ang ating speaker is a Davao City native that served on various non-government organizations and church institutions, including Business for Social Progress, Mindanao Salud Pastoral Conference, and the National Secretariat of Social Action, Justice, and Peace. 1990, a religious brother from 1983 to 1985 and was released after found to be innocent of charges. Then now History and Theological Discourses. National Book Award for Social Sciences in 2013. And ang ating pong guest speaker was awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award as author by the Cardinal Sin Catholic Mass Media Awards by Ateneo de Manila University and the Datu Bag Award by Davao City in 2017. Grabe po, no? It's really a great honor. Kasama po natin ang ating guest speaker for Session 19 of the National Sports Summit 2021. Kaya po, can we all welcome with a big round of applause our guest speaker, Brother Carlito Carl Gaspar. Brother, magandang hapon po sa inyo.
Magandang hapon, Diyos. Thank you very much for that introduction. Magandang hapon sa lahat, lalong-lalo na ang commissioners ng PSC at lahat ng stakeholders sa grupong ito. Sa mga Bisaya, maayong hapon sa inyong tanan. I am very honored to be able to present to you my paper, and I'll just make sure the PowerPoint is on so that you have something to be able to follow. Now, we always have this technical thing. Religion, Ethics, and Sports, and I'm Brother Carl Gaspar, a Redemptorist brother based here in Davao City. Just to give us immediately an idea as to the relationship between sports and religion, I have a quote from the second letter of St. Paul to Timothy. And the text goes, I have fought the good fight to the end. I have run the race to the finish. I have kept the faith. All there is to come for me now is the crown of uprightness, which the Lord, the upright judge, will give to me on that day. And not only to me, but to all those who have longed for His appearing. Sa text na to, nakikita kaagad natin na the language of sports ay nagamit din ng mga apostolis tulad ni St. Paul. When mankind was still very much connected to their indigenous belief system in the past, sports was always very much linked to their religious system because games were embedded in religious rituals since time immemorial. Kaya nga, throughout human history, masasabi natin that sports and religion have been very closely linked. Sabi nga ng isang author, si Gutman, sabi niya, when it had original close link to religion, sports was a meaningful enterprise that upheld the noblest ideals of a group and was integral to other activities of the group. Kaya masasabi kaagad natin, noon pa man, na napakalaki ang papel ng sports sa paniniwala ng mga tao. The great competitions of archaic cultures had always formed part of the sacred festivals and were indispensable as health and happiness bringing. Sabi nga ng isang author na si Womack, yung sports daw ay kasama talaga yan sa mga kultura nung nakaraang mga panahon at mga sagrado ito ng mga festival dahil nagbibigay ito ng well-being sa health and happiness ng mga tao. Kaya masasabi nga, through the centuries, there has always been this link between sports and religion. Although, meron ding mga pagbabago at mga various shifts in the course of time. At some occasions, ang mga opinion ng mga tao is that sports are closely related very much to religion because both religion and sports are meant or have all this effort towards achieving a goal. Thus, sport daw is an appropriate metaphor for a spiritual quest or for the often elusive goals of life itself. At times, sports has served the objectives of religious authorities imbued with a morality and philosophy derived from religious doctrine. Dito nga masasabi natin na ang sports ay may pagkakawing din sa ethical considerations. Pero on the other hand, meron ding nagsasabi they reject very much the secular emphasis in sports. At sabi pa rin nila nga, sports has a capacity to divert the people's attention from godly activities. Kaya yung dalawang pananaw na to ay nagkakasabay-sabay. Noong mga unang panahon, in the so-called pre-conquest cultures, at especially ito yung mga nasa Central America, involving the Native Americans, no? Or oftentimes we refer to them as the Indians. These were taking place, for example, in the rainforest of Guatemala, across South America. At nangyari ito mga around 3,000 years ago sa mga grupo ng mga tao na ang kanilang mga pangalan ay Mayan and Aztecs. They had ritualized practices that influence athletic contests. Dito daw sa mga athletic contest ng mga Mayans at Aztecs, their priests presided over their bull games, which oftentimes were played at the grounds adjacent to their temples. Kaya malapit lang doon sa kanilang mga templo, doon din sila naglalaro. Dito sa mga dulang ito, there are ritual balls that they use. And this ritual ball was often seen as a great symbolic power as it can provide a conquering ruler with the means of validating his reign, or it can also provide a defeated rival with an opportunity to achieve an honorable death. So on one hand daw, may isang papel ito na nagbibigay ng otoridad doon sa isang ruler, pero kung sa kabila naman ay may natatalo, binibigyan siya ng oportunidad na mamatay with honor. As part of rituals, competitive games were believed to have caused the gods to smile on the offering of chosen youth, manifesting great skill. Dahil naman sa sports, yan natin makikita yung talino at lakas ng mga kabataan at siya daw naging dahilan kung bakit natutuwa yung kanilang gods. Doon din sa among the Native Americans, Indians in North America pa rin, this would be now the countries of Canada and even the US, there had always been a strong tendency to weave transcendental meaning into all aspects of their lives in whatever dimensions possible. Sa lahat daw ng kanilang mga ginagawa ay sagradong-sagrado dahil ito ay nakakawin sa kanilang paniniwala. So whether they were hunting or they were making pottery or they traded with one another and governed their tribes, the sacred was always involved. Kaya din, when they played sports, the sacred was also involved. Naturally, games were also carried with the air of sacredness as athletic contests were a ritualized means of pleasing the gods, securing fertility, conjuring rain, prolonging life, expelling demons, and curing illnesses. Kung titingnan natin, halos lahat na lang ng bagay-bagay sa buhay ng mga tao ay nakakawing dito sa kanilang pagnanais na kung meron silang mga sports na ritualized, ay kumbaga ang kanilang mga ninanais ay magkakaroon ng maraming anak, kung panahon ng walang ulan ay magkakaulan, kung meron silang sakit, sila ay pwedeng may pagkakataon na mawawala yung kanilang mga sakit and so on and so forth. Isa sa mga napaka-popular na sports, and these were being played by the Iroquois tribes along the Lawrence River in the region of Ontario, which is part of Canada, was a suck and ball game na ang tawag nito ay lacrosse. Nag-originate ito in the early 15th century. Tagal-tagal na, mga 600 years ago. As it spread, the game's rules, rituals, and mythologies were adapted to local costumes and folded into tribal identities. And as the game unfolds, young men gave their shaman such great authority in overseeing the game. In fact, they would refer to the game as a cure for individual and communal illness. Tulad na nga ng nasabi natin na ang mga larong ito ay isa sa mga pamamaraan kung paano nila mapagaling ang mga may sakit. Kaya binibigyan nila yung bailan, yung bilyan, yung babaylan, yung shaman ng malaking authority na sila ang overseer over the particular game, even as they are the officiants of the rituals. Now, isa sa mga talagang masasabi natin na pinanggalingan nitong tinatawag natin na sports at dito nga nakakawing itong gagawin sa Tokyo in July, August, no, yung Olympic Games. Nagsimula ito sa bansang Greece. And this was organized many years ago as part of, again, the religious belief system of the people, as hundreds of local religious athletic festivals thrive around the Greek-dominated rim of the Mediterranean. Itong mga games na to were conducted as a way to honor their gods and goddesses. Dahil nga ang mga Griego, ang dami nilang pinapaniwalaan na mga gods and goddesses, kaya tawag sa kanila ay polytheists. They believe that in every specific sphere of life, there was a particular god who was in charge. For example, for health, there's this God. For the sky, there is this God. For the sea, this is this God, and so on and so forth. They also have another belief, and ito yung kanilang paniniwala na mga gods and goddesses were very pleased and they highly favored the male warrior virtues of physical strength, those who were agile and could endure long stretches of time. As we know, both in the Greek and in the Roman world, there were gladiators or warriors. who also were the ones who played a lot of games, which involve a lot of running, a lot of fighting, and therefore needing physical strength, agility, and endurance. And para sa kanila daw, natutuwa ang mga gods and goddesses pag nakikita ang mga atletang ito. There were 4 different games that were played across Greece during this time. Tawag nila nito ay Olympian, Pythian, Isthmian, Anemian. At lahat ng ito were associated with the worship of the gods. Specifically, the Olympian Games were held in honor of Zeus, the ruler of the sky, whose worship centered on Mount Olympus, also the site of his marriage to Hera. Mount Olympus, that's where the name Olympics come from. They also had the so-called Python Games, which were held at Delphi, which was the site of Apollo's oracle, and were said to have been established by the god as compensation for his killing of the great serpent Python. Marami nga sila mga epic stories, mga narratives kung saan ang mga istorya ng kanilang mga gods and goddesses ay nagbibigay ng larawan kung paano nga sila natutuwa sa mga ginagawang mga sports at that particular time. But of course, that has persisted until today, and that's why until today we still have the Olympics. In other religious faith traditions like Hinduism, meron ding papel ang mga sports tulad ng Hinduism. Alam natin, nagsimula ito during the height of the civilization in India when Hinduism arose as a religion. Ang popular na sports at that time were chariot races. It was already in vogue at that time. And the prizes that were given for these races were cows, because cows were always very highly treasured and revered. So those who won in the chariot races were awarded cows because their milk symbolized immortality. The oldest of the Hindu documents that still persist until today would inform us that the chariot race was considered a metaphor for the pursuit of immortality. Dahil alam naman natin na ang tao ay gustong mabuhay hanggang sa katapusan ng mundo. Ayaw nga nilang mamatay. Kaya there are aspects of religion like in Hinduism where the people aspire for immortality. May isa daw kanta galing sa dokumentong ito na ito yung kaniyang text. Soon, Indra, make us winners of cows. Make us victors among men. Make us more like you, O powerful one, and bring us immortality. Now, pag sinabi mo victors, ibig sabihin, there were races. Pag there were races, ibig sabihin, there were sports. In Buddhism, there was also very much the practice of sports. And very clearly, if you look at some of the practices of Buddhism, there is a sport there where it's very much associated to this sports known as Kyudo or Zen archery na kinukonsider din nila na religious ritual. If you're familiar, for example, with the practice of Zen, Zen is a form of meditation. The goal of Kyudo is to achieve a balance among mind and body. In the same way that when you're doing archery, you're trying to achieve a balance between the bow and the arrow. Because this balance makes it possible to establish a sense of unity that links the spirit to the target. Rather than hitting the target, the important element is achieving this balance. Kaya yung Kyudo, which is a very popular sport, is at the same time also a religious ritual for the Buddhists. And another sport that is very much connected to Buddhism is, of course, the martial arts of Kung Fu, which was developed by Bodhidharma, who was the legendary founder of Zen Buddhism at the Shaolin Monastery in China, approximately in 530 CE. It is said that there are ancient history that recount how he meditated for long hours in a cave and developed Kung Fu as a means of keeping his body flexible after a long, motionless meditation. Siyempre sa atin ngayon, dahil nga sa mga pelikula ni Bruce Lee, at makikita din natin sa mga Kung Fu exhibits on television or even live, if we go watch them live, hindi na natin masyadong kinakawing ang Kung Fu sa meditation, hindi dun sa action, self-defense or whatever. But it really began as a form of meditation, even as it was also very much considered martial arts, and because it came out of the faith tradition of Buddhism. Hindi lang ang Hinduism and Buddhism had religion and sports very much interlinked, but also Christianity. Although by the time Christianity became dominant in the world, when Christianity arose, sports was no longer very much part of religious rituals. But as we saw already during the first slide, where I quoted a text from St. Paul, some of the words used in religious language referred to sports because these were very common metaphors to link sport and religion. And that is why St. Paul the Apostle, in a number of his letters, compared religious discipline to sport on several occasions. So for example, in the first letter to the Corinthians, chapter 9, verse 24, where he says, "Do you not know that in a race all the runners compete, but only one receives the prize? So run that you may obtain it." Additional text from St. Paul in his first letter to the Corinthians, chapter 9, verse 26 to 27, he says, "I do not box as one boxing the air, but I pummel my body and subdue it, lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified." And a second letter to Timothy, chapter 4, he says, "I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, I have kept the faith." So if you look at the epistles, clearly the sports language is very much part of Christian tradition. However, even if we can read in the New Testament that the language of sports could easily be regarded as religious language, it cannot be said that through the centuries there has been a congenial or a favorable relationship between sports and Christianity. In fact, the opposite is true. Thus, the Christian churches, both Catholic and Protestant, through the years would have regarded sport with suspicion, owing to its emphasis on the profane body and its potential to lure its followers away from their godly responsibilities, and therefore were regarded as sinful. Dito nakikita na natin yung tension din within Christian tradition, na kahit na may iba nagsasabi na nakakatulong talaga ang sports for the moral formation of people, especially young people, meron din nagsasabi within the church na ayaw din nila masyadong ma-emphasize yung sports dahil kumbaga ginagawang very important yung body rather than the soul. At nagiging dahilan daw ito kung bakit nagkakasala ang mga tao. Kaya masasabi din natin na while the Catholic Church included many popular physical activities into its religious and festive occasions, di ba? Pag fiesta, pag may fiesta, at sabi nga ni Commissioner Ramon Fernandez kanina, yung 498 celebration, may mga church activities, meron talaga yung mga fourth step festival. However, in the history of the church, there was the rise of the so-called Puritanism. Puritanism arose in the 16th and 17th centuries. Yung paniniwala na masyadong ini-emphasize yung spiritual na aspeto ng ating buhay, kaya hindi daw importante yung ginagawa ng katawan. And this particular Puritanism heralded an era where many sporting activities were regarded as sinful. Nagkakasala nga daw ang tao kung masyado ini-emphasize yung sports. Although on one hand, the Puritans naman will recognize the political and military utility in many physical endeavors. Pero para sa kanila, lalong-lalo na sa mga masa, sa mga peasant class, ayaw nila na masyadong ini-emphasize ang sports because this will lead out to drinking and gambling and other dubious pursuits. Kaya dito pumapasok yung ethical considerations ng sports para sa kanila. However, it cannot be denied that Christianity has had the most pronounced influence or impact on the philosophy of modern sport. Even as various Christian churches have not always regarded sport as a suitable activity for their followers. Ito nga yung tinatawag natin na dina-downplay yung corpus o yung katawan dahil mas importante ang spiritual. At kung masyado daw pinapopularize ang modern sport, yung debosyon ng mga fans sa sport, ang kanilang mga ginagawa to display their loyalty to particular teams, parang ginagawa na nilang religion ang sports at wala na nga silang pakialam dun sa kanilang paniniwala tulad ng Christianity. Subalit, on the other hand then, there have been new developments in the church that help to create a shift which brought sports and Christian practices together. At nagsisimula ito especially in the mid-19th century, so mga 1850s around the time until today. For example, the inclusion of a physical education curriculum, therefore, the idea is to complement the intellectual and moral training with physical training through sports among elite English public schools led to the incorporation of games into their educational system. Hindi mo na maiisip ang mga kolehiyo, mga paaralan, mga universidad na walang sports, walang basketball team, walang soccer team, walang tennis team, and so on. Kabahagi na talaga yan ng campus life. At kung titingnan mo lahat ng mga Catholic universities and colleges, there are many activities related to sports. So, kahit na sabihin mong corporeal activity pa rin ang sports, they also see the importance of sports in being able to develop moral and ethical perspectives for their students. Kaya nga, kung makinig tayo sa mga value formation ng ating mga coaches, ng mga professors, mga teachers, administrators ng mga eskwelahan, whether they are faith-related or not, Catholic or public, sabihin nila that sports are very important because they encourage fair play, sportsmanship, they build moral character, and they build leadership among the youth. Kaya they encourage all these youth activities in sports. Another phenomenon that contributed to the popularity of sports in the history of humanity is the rise of industrialization which lead to urbanization. Ito naman ay naging resulta ng Age of Enlightenment. If you recall, in the 1700 towards the 1800, especially in Western Europe, there arose the Age of Enlightenment, leading to the rise of philosophy, rationality, science, and technology. And this created the phenomenon called the Industrial Revolution. And this Industrial Revolution in the West contributed to the shift in the popularity of sport, because by then it became emphasized that you can use sport to construct generations of strong, fit, muscular Christians. And this became a mission of many church organizations because natakot din sila in the so-called feminization of the male youth. Masyadong naging effeminate na raw dahil wala nga physical activity like sports. Consequently nga, even the image of Jesus changed. As the figure of Jesus was also being refigured, dati-rati many images and statues and pictures of Jesus show him as weak and fragile and suffering and so on. But the new images now would present Jesus as robust and strong, so that this would correspond to the bodily composition of Christians as they are being transformed into athletic figures. Eventually, in the modern world, Catholic teachings of the magisterium or the Pope and the bishops would also shift and creating more support for the popularization of sports. So with Vatican II, Gaudium et Spes, this was late 1960s, under that section called the Proper Development of Culture, the document of the Second Vatican Council said that it recognizes that physical exercise and sports help to create harmony of feeling, and even on the level of the community, as well as foster friendly relations between people of all classes, countries, and races. That particular phrase, for example, already gives you an idea as to how it is linked to the Olympic Games, no? Because you hear those kind of words being said during the Olympic Games. Further, it's stated that to safeguard the integrity of the human person in the light of the absolute value and the integrity of the person is very much in terms of the unity between body and soul. And this is a very important element in relating sports to Christian religion. So no less than Saint Paul II have words as quoted like this: the wonderful structure of the human person created by God is as a spiritual being, as a unity of body and spirit. So this idea that the body and the spirit are one, as much as you're concerned about the spiritual growth of human beings, you should also be very much concerned about their physical well-being, their health. And sports is, of course, a very important aspect of being able to keep fit. Thus, the biblical basis has always been true that the dignity of the human body is based on this belief that man was created in the image of God, and therefore man's duty is to glorify God in the body, as well as, of course, in the spirit. Thus, sports and athletic competitions can reveal the wonderful structure of the human person created by God as a spiritual being, a unity of body and spirit. So parati yan in-emphasize yung pagkakaisa nga ng katawan at ng diwa, ng espiritu ng bawat tao. Very relevant to the coming Olympics is looking back to some of the statements issued by the church as Olympics were being played in many countries. So because the Olympics were always very good occasions for the popes to issue a statement. For example, in 2004 at the Athens Olympics, St. John Paul II used this occasion to call for a truce of all the wars and conflicts so that the games would proceed without a hitch. Kaya yung Olympics naging occasion for peace building. And when the Olympics were played in Brazil, sila yung host, Pope Francis also issued a statement to the same effect, no, that the Olympics certainly contribute to world peace. Kaya the Pontifical Council of Lay has identified sports as a new tool for evangelization or spreading the good news. This particular Council of the Lay has recommended the following tasks in relation to sports. First, to ensure more direct systematic attention to the vast world of sport on the part of the Church that fosters a renewal of pastoral work in and through sports. B, to diffuse the teachings of the Church regarding sport and to promote the study and research on various themes of sport, especially those of an ethical nature. C, to promote initiatives that can serve to evangelize the world of sports, especially those which foster the witness of an authentic Christian life. Ibig sabihin daw, ang simbahan ay kinakailangan na i-encourage yung renewal ng sports in view of what it can do also to renew pastoral work. Dahil mahalaga talaga daw ang naibibigay ng mga ethical lessons ng sports sa mga kabataan. Kaya masasabi din na yung mundo ng paglalaro ay nakakatulong doon sa paniniwala ng mga Kristiyano. Letter D naman is to promote the culture of sports in harmony with the true dignity of the human person through youth education, and lastly, to favor collaboration among the various sporting organizations and associations on the national and international level. Masasabi natin doon sa letter E, dito siguro pumapasok yung papel ng PSC. At itong summit na to ay isa sa mga indicator paano magkakaroon ng greater collaboration among different associations here in the Philippines or at the national level of our country. Now, we can say that the idea that sports can ennoble or provide educational values, promote unity, while creating healthy bodies, ay kahit na marami na nga ang naniniwala dyan, meron pa rin talaga in various religions do not accept this. Right now, there are those that believe that they are tools for communal integrity. Meron pa rin nagsasabi na hindi rin sila masyadong believe nito. Kaya nga sabi nila, these are opiate of the masses. Or mga opium ba? Murag ma-addicted lang sila. Dahil they divert the people's attention from the real problems. Kumbaga, naging addicted na lang sila masyado sa sports. Wala na silang pakialam sa mga problema ng mundo, problema ng pamilya, at hindi na nga nag-aaral, hindi na nagtatrabaho dahil masyado nang na-addict doon sa sports. Merong, kung titingnan mo yung lahat ng mga authors na may sinusulat hinggil sa sports, marami din ang nagsasabi na malakas yung pag-uugnayan ng religion at ng sports. Isa nito ay si Edward. Sabi niya, there's a close structured relationship between sports and religion. And you can tell that because both identify their own gods and saints. They have their ruling patriarchs. They have their high councils. They have their scribes. They have their shrines. They have houses of worship. they have symbols of faith, and they are seekers of the kingdom as these are features of both. Ibig sabihin, kung sa relihiyon ay may mga saints and gods, in sports meron ding mga celebrities, the top idols like Manny Pacquiao, parang god na rin sila. May mga ruling patriarchs sa atin, yung mga sports managers ng mga malalaking basketball teams. Yung shrines and houses of worship, ito daw yung mga Araneta Gym, mga Ultra Gym, ano ba yung mga gym, mga arena where people flock in the thousands to watch games. No? And mga simbolo daw ng faith tulad ng kandila, mga flaglets, mga statues and so on. Kung pupunta ka sa mga games, mayroon din daw mga ganyan. Kaya yung dalawa daw, yung sports and religion, nagkakaugnay. Those who have argued that sport is an actual religion point to the emotional and devotional aspects of sport and suggest that sports holds meaning for fans in the way that traditional religions are unable to do. May mga authors na nagsasabi na this is especially in the West, no, dahil hindi na masyadong mahalaga sa kanila mga paniniwala. Mga protestante sila, mga katoliko, hindi na sila masyadong nagsisimba. Pag linggo, ayaw na nila magsimba. Nasa harap sila ng TV, nanonood ng basketball, o nagpupunta ng gym dahil nag-exercise upang maging muscular, or they watch games in the Araneta Coliseum or wherever. Kaya yung mga fans ng mga sports, para sa kanila, ito na yung kanilang debosyon. At ito ang dahilan kung bakit may mga tao sa simbahan na medyo critical nga about sports. Sabi pa rin nila, the passion, the very passionate commitment that the fans manifest, especially when they have agony, pag defeated yung kanilang team, or when they are elated, pag nanalo naman yung kanilang team. This reveal a transcendent experience among the followers. And for them, this provides sacred communal moments between players and fans. And thus, sports are capable of providing a means of ultimate transformation that alters people's lives. Kaya sa mga fans na masyadong addicted na to the games, hindi na nila kailangan ng relihiyon. Ayaw na nila magsimba, wala na silang prayer life. Dahil pag pumupunta naman sila sa mga games na talagang committed to their team in whatever experience they have, nanalo ba sila, natalo ba sila, parang transcendent experience na rin yun. Parang nagsimba ka na rin at pinakita mo na rin yung paniniwala sa Diyos. And yet, we all know, of course, that sports arose out of religious festivals. At alam na nga natin na yung dalawa ay nagkakawing because both have their own heroes, they have their own stories and legends about accomplishments that can evoke intense excitement and emotional commitment. Alam natin yan sa mga fans talaga ng mga basketball team sa Europe and other countries, yung soccer, yung football na talagang ina-idolize na nila yung mga players na kahit na walang game, pina-follow nila sa social media, kilalang-kilala na nila, and even stories about their life, their married life, and so on, they continuously share because it gives them excitement, gives them emotional commitment. Kaya para bang nagbibigay ito ng personal meaning to their lives, it provides them a sense of belonging, at for them, it stresses discipline and development of character. Kaya ano masasabi mo kung talagang yun naman ang kanilang paniniwala? Now again, to compare both, masasabi natin that at the global level, both sports and religion have their promoters. Sa mga religion, faith institutions, tawag sa kanila ay missionaries. For sports, this would be the promoters, yung mga recruiters ng mga athletes, yung mga fundraisers for big games. Because they're very active in the four corners of the globe. Wherever you go now, sports are very, very, very popular. And all of them are characterized by ritualized performance. At makikita mo to with the delighted devotion of the followers. Kumbaga, just like especially when you go to say Mike Bilarde, Brother Ed sa Luneta, yung kanilang mga big rally there, and they shout and scream and sing and so on and so forth. Yun yung klaseng debusyon ng mga religious practice na yan. Napupunta ka din sa arena, sa Araneta, when the fans begin to scream and so on. Wala nang pagkakaiba. Kaya whether it's cathedral or gym, where fans are or followers are involved, they manifest the same behavior. Another aspect na pwede mo silang i-kawing na naman ay minsan kung nagkakaroon ng gulo. Of course, this is especially more for sports rather than religious festivals. Although, alam natin, for example, in India, where thousands of people will flock in some of their festivals, sometimes it can lead to a lot of accidents because there can be violence owing to the stampede when there are all kinds of troubles. But this has been one very negative profile of sports, especially the big time sports like soccer and football, and this especially in the West, in Europe. For a number of centuries now, there has been a rise of violence erupting during sports games. And in the current contemporary period, the resurgence has become a very hot topic. On a daily basis, religious radicalism has also caused the outbreak of violence in various parts of the globe, owing to tensions and open conflicts due to differences in religious views. Alam natin ito, especially because of militant Islam. Unfortunately, Islamic faith has been very much linked to terrorism because of the violence, and it's such a pity because Islam actually is a religion of peace. But this is the same with sports. Sports is supposed to cultivate sportsmanship and fair play. But when fans become very unruly and they cannot accept defeat, then violence can erupt in the arena or in the gym. And this, as I said already, has been very common in a number of soccer games. Way back in Liverpool in England, way back in 1975, there was a major violent encounter between the fans. And this has been termed now football hooliganism. They become hooligans, they become unruly. And in fact, it creates or it leads to death among some of the fans. And hundreds can be brought to the hospital as their heart in the stampede that follows. Now we can clearly see that sports possess qualities and characteristics that coincide with religious ideology, because for both players and fans, sports has the ability to help a human person transcend as an individual to a supernatural level of existence. As one author named Prebisch wrote, he notes that it all boils down to this, that if sports can bring its advocates to an experience of the ultimate, and this experience is expressed through a formal series of public and private rituals requiring a symbolic language and space deemed sacred by its worshippers, then it is both proper and necessary to call sport itself a religion. Kaya sabi niya, pwede mo rin sabihin talaga na religion na rin ang sports dahil in the manner that the fans would practice while games are played or even beyond the games, para na rin silang may paniniwala while being fans. So therefore, we can clearly see that sports possess qualities and characteristics that coincide with religious ideology, because for both players and fans, sports has the ability to help a human person transcend as an individual to a supernatural level of existence. Kaya may nagsasabi na rin, may mga authors na nagsasabi na we can call sports as a civil religion. And this has far-reaching implications that will impact traditional religions like Christianity as they lose their influence in society. Many already have commented on this, no? That in European, American cities, there would be more people flocking to watch television or going to the gym or going to auditoriums to watch games, especially during major international and national festivals, and would rather watch these games rather than go to church. And therefore, some already have labeled Western society as post-Christian. And that's why some authors say sports has become a civil religion in itself. And various research studies have shown that traditional church attendance has decreased in highly developed countries as devotion to sports has replaced or overpowered devotion to traditional religion. Natatalo na talaga ang traditional religion ng sports. As they become more popular, they replace religion in terms of their social functions in a given society. Further, they can believe that there are teachings that can help guide and reassure us in our lives that can only be sought. I mean, there are those who believe, on one hand, that there are things we can learn to guide and assure us in our lives through the study of religious teachings or by listening to homilies. There are still people like that, no? These are especially the traditional Catholics and Protestants. But as I already said, there are those who would rather be more interested in sports. And to them, sports may tangentially offer some moral insights. Although believers would say these are never enough to provide guidance and reassurance, because they would say that there are matters regarding the need for us to find answers to very important age-old questions. For example, what happens to us after death? Is there such a thing as a soul? You know, all these sort of mystical questions that many people ask, and the answers of which are found in their religious belief, whether Hinduism or Buddhism, Christianity or Islam. Is there such a thing as hell or heaven? What happens to my body when it's corrupted, when I die? Do I have a soul, and where does it go? Now, these sort of questions are discourses that cannot be answered by sports. And that's why they say you still need religion, not just sports. So today, there exists a widespread belief that the economic and political forces are becoming too influential and impersonal. And they misrepresent the role and place of sports in societies across the world. Ibig sabihin, yung ating politika at ang ating politika at ekonomiya sa ating bansa at ng mundo ay nagkakaroon din ito ng influence on the way we view sports. Dahil nga, many sports are going global because they increasingly belong to the world of work and business. And the notion of sports as a sort of entertainment has slowly disappeared. Dati-rati, people watch sports because they want to be entertained. Ngayon, hindi na lang entertainment yung sports because it's become very commodified already. People gamble as they watch games, or there's a very strong economic stake involved because whoever wins a game can win millions of dollars. So while the sports still can entertain people, today can serve as a form of politics rather than sports, can be used for political means, It can be used to promote economic gain, political agendas, ideologies, and so on and so forth. Very clearly in the field of economy, sports and endorsing products has so become intertwined. If you become a top athlete, many corporations will come to you to make you an endorser of their product, and they pay you millions of dollars to be the celebrity endorser. And all kinds of products have been endorsed, from t-shirt to shoes to men's toiletries, cars, name it. There have been products being endorsed by athletes. So more and more, we see athletes posing, and their pictures are on tarpaulins all across the city, where they hold all these products in their hands. And therefore, you can ask who benefit from this. Of course, the corporations and the athletes themselves. But in the end, clearly the sports have become very commodified. So there are those who say that the games are sustained despite the fact that even if these athletes commit all kinds of abuses and are very unruly and so on, they are just completely hidden, or corporations try to cover it up as much as they can, because naturally it would impact sales of their products. However, that's rather the negative view of it. On the other hand, there's also the positive view of it, because there have also been cases where sports, athletes, celebrities have also allowed themselves to be used for campaigns in order to promote justice, to promote campaigns against racism, to promote concern for climate change. So today, you also have this phenomenon that as there are more athletes, those involved in sports are becoming more unpopular, and they hold dominating place in human life and culture, even as they may have very little place in the religious discourse, they can be tapped to promote moral issues. And these are moral issues that have been raised around gender, racial relations, sexual orientations, class interests, and economics. So in the end, we are also pleased to know that there are celebrity athletes, many who also are involved in sports, but are very serious about their spiritual practice, or their belief in moral and ethical values, because they can then, they can then act to, they can then act to promote these particular values. And I think I have reached my final slide. So with that, thank you very much. Maraming salamat. Magandang hapon sa lahat.
Thank you very much to our guest speaker, Brother Carl Gaspar. Hindi ko po alam, no? I don't know about you sa mga participants po natin, pero this is very an informative, no, and very interesting topic to know about the history of how we relate religion and ethics to sports. And para bigyan tayo ng synthesis on our topic for this afternoon, can we all welcome again our moderator, Ms. Arian Malyari. Ms. Arian, magandang hapon.
Yes, thank you so much, Joash. And of course, thank you, Brother Carl. Sabi nga po ni Joash, no, it was a very interesting and informative discussion on religion, ethics, and sports. And alam niyo po, ang dami ko pong natutunan, ang dami kong bagong discoveries po ngayong araw dahil sa topic na to. For sure, pati po yung mga participants po natin mula Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao ay marami rin pong nakuha ngayong araw. With this po, I would like to re-emphasize po some important points that I have picked up during the discussion. Throughout human history, religion and sports have been closely connected. Sports convey important lessons about values and culturally appropriate behavior of an individual. The lessons they teach are similar, and both religion and sports uses symbols as their primary means of communication. Brother Carl also discussed in his presentation the different native populations uses sports or games as part of their sacredness as athletic contest, where a ritualized means of pleasing the gods, securing fertility, conjuring rain, prolonging life, expelling demons, and curing illnesses. And these were conducted as a way to honor their gods and goddesses, as they are polytheists, believing that in every specific sphere of life, a particular god was in charge. He also mentioned that since the mid 19th century, new developments helped to create a ship which brought sports and Christian practices together. The inclusion of a physical education curriculum meant to complement the intellectual and moral training among elite English public schools led to the incorporation of games into their educational system. He also discussed the sports as means to transmit values, fair play, sportsmanship, build moral character, leadership among youth, wherein one important element in relating sports to Christian religion is that they can safeguard the integrity of the human person in the light of the absolute value and integrity of the person in terms of the unity between body and soul. Brother Carl also shared what happened during the 2004 Olympics in Athens, Greece, wherein St. Paul John II called for a truce to all wars and conflicts so that the games would proceed without a hitch. So naging way din po itong sports or religion din po, no, as a way of peacemaking po. The Pontifical Council of Lay has identified sports as a new tool for evangelization. Sports arose out of religious festivals, and that both sports and religious have their own heroes, stories, and legends about accomplishments that can evoke intense excitement and emotional commitment. They can also give deep personal meaning to people's lives, a sense of belonging, and both stress, discipline, and development of characters. We can clearly see here that sports possess qualities and characteristics that coincides with religious ideology. For both players and fans, has the ability, or sport has the ability to help a human person transcend as an individual to a supernatural level of existence. And lastly, sports and religion can certainly be in peaceful coexistence with each other, as both can be a tool for development, teamwork, discipline among humanity, and unity. Again, thank you so much, Brother Carl, and thank you po sa inyong shinare pong knowledge sa amin ngayong hapon. Back to you, Joash.
Thank you, Miss Arian Malyare. Very concise din yung ating synthesis. No, I hope talaga marami kayong natutunan. Parang feeling ko, Brother Carl, bumalik ako sa pagka-estudyante ko and listening to your lecture. Hindi po natutulog, pero nakikinig po ng maigi to your lecture. It was really an informative one. That being said, we will take this time to fill out our evaluation and attendance verification forms. We are sending those sa ating pong chat box right now. There you go. Nandiyan na po yan. As mentioned, mahalaga po sa amin that lahat po ng participants ay mag-fill out ng forms, as these are the basis of your participation for today, and a session certificate as well. And as you know, every certificate po will be given for each session, and meron pa po tayong completion certificate para po sa lahat ng makakatapos ng ating 4 sessions for batch 5. That being, you can find ang ating form sa ating chat box right now, and please make sure lahat po ng mga information na inyo pong nilalagay ay on correct, especially ang mga spelling po ng inyong pangalan and your emails. And habang tayo po ay we are taking this short minute po para to fill out the forms, we are also inviting everyone to please send in your questions para po sa ating open forum mamaya-maya. Please send your questions and reactions, kahit ano po yan, to any of our facilitator 1 and 2. Nandyan po yan. And syempre later, no, you can also have the chance to ask live sa atin po with our guest speaker, no, and Miss Ayan Malyari as our moderator. So pwede na po kayong mag-line up, no? You can already raise your hand if you have a live question or reaction. And that being said, ibabalik ko na po ang ating floor sa ating moderator, Miss Arian Malyare. Okay? Para entertain na natin yung mga naka-raise hand natin na questions. But we are always reminding you na pwede po kayong mag-send in and we will read through your questions. Go ahead, Ayang.
Thank you, Joash. Of course, our first live question will be coming from Jan Charlene T. Mangaldan of DepEd Manila. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon po. Yes, I would like to share some of the insights that I have learned na I didn't realize. Oh, see. Okay. Okay. I didn't realize that sports and religion can be can be related as well. Sorry.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah, that's all po. Yes, that I just shared some of the insights that I have learned in this afternoon's session.
Yes. Thank you, Ma'am Jan, for that sharing. Okay, next live question will be coming from Philippine Bowling Federation, Sir Reynaldo Reyes. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon po. Brother Carl, magandang hapon po. Pardon lang po, medyo mahaba lang po itong tanong ko, sir. Again po, good afternoon. Sir, Brother Carl, how can we, based po sa discussions po, how can we strengthen po the connection of religion and sports in our modern times, given po yung different opinions and ideologies, to promote and stress values and virtues, particularly po sa ating mga elite athletes, especially that we all know, mostly know that engagement po in sporting activities not only honor their respective countries, but more so, naniniwala naman po ako na karamihan po ay naniniwala sa ideolohiyang ito that engagement in sport honors the supreme and divine being, our God, who created each human and gifted them with innate athletic abilities. So paano po, ang main question ko po is how to strengthen this connection between religion and sports po. Salamat po, Brother Carl.
Salamat sa tanong mo, Ray. Ang isa sa mga pwede talaga nating gawin at malaki ang papel talaga ng mga schools, no? It's in the formation level that we can highlight how religion and sports can mutually benefit from each other. They not necessarily are in conflict with one another. Kaya kung Catholic schools hindi masyado problema dahil may panahon naman talaga for religious instruction, no? It's integrated into the curriculum. Mga public schools, kung merong mga catechist na inaalaw ng mga principal na magturo, ay nakakatulong din kung nakakapasok sila para magbigay ng catechism class. Kaya mas mahirap nga sa public school, lalong-lalo na kung walang ibang paraan, kung hindi maiilan sa mga guro na they take it upon themselves to incorporate it in their value formation. Kasi pag nasa Catholic school ka o isang catechist ka, ay madali mong sabihin na based on our belief system for Roman Catholics at least, even for Protestants, pwede mo naman siyang ikawing doon sa mga teachings ng Bible kasi mula pa sa Genesis, the first book of the Old Testament, very clearly it's there that God is the creator of everything, of the universe, of human beings. And we are created with body and soul, and each part of us is sacred, is holy. It is not that the body is less important than the soul, or the soul is less important than the body, but that it's the unity of the body and the soul and the spirit that is very important. And that's why human beings, as best as they can, since they're young children, from their youth until they're even elderly, should always try their best to remain healthy, because health is a gift from God, you know, and good health does not happen as an accident. You aim for it, and this is why you eat nutritious food, you avoid junk food, you don't drink too much alcohol, and you do a lot of exercise, and this is where sports come in. Sports becomes more, exercise becomes more pleasurable or enjoyable if there is an element of game. And because, you know, as children, we like playing games, and sports are actually games, no? And this is where the value formation regarding fair play and sportsmanship can again be taught. And of course, this can be taught in any setting, whether public or private school, no? Because these are values that which young people should begin to inculcate in their minds, that in life we should try to always be honest, we don't cheat, and we accept the reality of life. If we're good, then we win. If there's someone who's better than us, we lose, and we accept that defeat in graciousness, and there should be no hard feelings, because that's the fact of life. We are never winners all the time. There are times when we are losers. So these are like sort of values that we can inculcate. And as I said, the advantage if this is done in a Catholic or a religious setting is that you can anchor it in sacred scriptures, the teachings of Jesus Christ, and even the models of the saints. No? Now, where that may not be possible, then in public schools, you can do this through value formation. And it is up to the teacher, the coach, to try to inculcate as much as he can the moral values, because moral values naman need not necessarily be religious sounding, no? I mean, fair play, sportsmanship, empowerment of the body, and so on. These are really good qualities of life, and they are very much affirmed by God, who is our creator. No? So in the end, in one sentence, I would answer your question by saying that there can be a greater mutual benefit between sports and religion if we take advantage of the time when our young people are still in school, because these are the occasions when we can build their character through moral education.
Thank you, Brother Carl. Sir Reynaldo, may question pa po kayo?
Wala na po, Ma'am Arian. Maraming salamat po, Brother Carl.
Thank you, Sir Reynaldo. At ang ating next question will be coming from Wi-Fi Association of the Philippines from Davao, Sir Nel John Astudillo. Good afternoon po.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you very much for the opportunity to give insights about this, kasi this is really one of my passion, why I'm still doing sports. I'm into sports. And thank you, Brother Carl, for the lecture that you give. No, deep. It's really deep. No, I'm into chaplaincy. I'm into sports chaplaincy. I've been into training in US. Sama locally, I've been handling the Fellowship of Christian Athletes here in Davao for almost 3 years. And until right now, no, so I'm using sport as a platform to evangelize. And very true. Yung sinabi niyo na it has a lot of impact, especially sa mga kabataan. So thank you, Brother Carl, for the new learnings, kasi you go really deep, no? Even yung history about, first time ko narinig yun, the history about Greek, and even it's about competing to represent their God. Even right now, no, yung idea of people are making sports as their God. So even their religion. So nakakatakot. Pero I've been involved in the sports ministry kasi yun nga, if you want to reach the people for Christ, then we have 80% of the world is involved in sports. So the best way to bring the gospel to the people is through sports. And yun lang, giving a testimony lang din kasi dati I've been into sa martial arts, and then I've been doing it to keep the discipline. Layo sa bisyo, layo sa ganyan. Pero later on, kung wala lang a strong sense of faith or walang Diyos na nag-guide sa'yo, hindi enough yung sports, na-realize ko. So God is really the source of peace and joy sa buhay ng tao. Sabi nga doon sa Matthew chapter 5 verse 6 na blessed are those who thirst and hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Yung fulfillment sa heart natin, na karoon lang yun ng satisfaction kung merong Diyos. So I'm really a believer of it. And even yun din ang nag-unite yung different kinds of faith ngayon, because yung kabataan nga natin, di ba, we believe that the young generations are the next leaders. And kung wala ng Diyos, nakakatakot yun. So yun yung burden ng lahat ng chaplains, either for different religion, Islam, Hindu, or Christianity. Kasi nawala na yung picture of God, naging sports na yung God. So we want to reach this generation for God through sports. So ang question, and I'm just saying na I really agree with you po. That's why sabi ko ngayon, I'm using the platform, yung aking mga grassroots program dito sa Davao, mga church-based. Kasi it really helps bringing people sa church. And then yung mga nasa, nalagay natin sa national athlete ngayon are from the grassroots program sa mga church-based. So partnership po ako sa mga simbahan. Because I believe that real change comes when you let God and Jesus Christ be involved. Ang question ko po is, do we have a sports chaplaincy program or intentionally na plug in talaga sa ating program sa PSC? Kasi ngayon, we're studying tulad sa Australia, ganun, meron talaga silang, and pinunta namin sa US, bawat mga grassroots program, may partners talaga na mga pastors or imams or mga priests in the training. Kasi yung malalakas yung sports chaplaincy. So kahit sa heart ko talaga is talagang sana magkaroon ng gano'n na meron talaga tayong program sa Philippine Sports Commission na endorse talaga that every grassroots program magkaroon ng chaplains. Kasi para ma-instill talaga yung faith. Kasi nga nakakatakot kung nawala na si God sa picture. Kasi we are created for God and to worship God. And if you take Him away there, doon nagkakaroon ngayon ng trouble. Kasi kahit sa sports. Kasi when we take our focus away from God, nagiging self-focus tayo at saka nagiging chaotic lahat. Kaya I believe that we really put God in His position. Ang sports lang is a platform to share about God. So, meron po ba tayong ganun ngayon na program sa Philippine Sports Commission natin na sports chaplaincy program po? Yun po ang question ko po. And again, thank you very much po. Thank you po.
Thank you, Neil. That was very good comment, no? But I think it will be the PSC that will respond to your question because I cannot speak on behalf of them. But before they say, before one of them will respond to your question, which I think is very important, no, very relevant, and I'm glad you raised it. Certainly, chaplaincy, like many endeavors we have in society, no, whether hospitals or even people going abroad as OFW, the military, media, etc. All the aspects of our lives would need pastors and imams and whatever are the names of the religious leader who can be present among them, so that if there is any member of the faith community needing somebody that will give advice, or in the process of the group meeting together, especially when there are tensions and conflicts, that someone can be there to provide some spiritual and moral guidance. Chaplains are always very important, and they play a very integral role. And certainly in sports, as you yourself indicated, and I'm glad that you're very, very aware of such a need, that among young people especially, the minds are still very flexible, no? And at that particular stage in life, young people can either be swayed towards a behavior that's very much mature or immature. And this particular area, especially, it's in the field of how do you deal with defeat, no? Because this is where hooliganism comes in, the violence come in. When people become so enamored, or that they're so passionate about winning, always winning, that they find it very difficult to accept defeat, and violence becomes like a result of that. So the chaplain can provide always the guidance to young people to develop a mindset of accepting the reality of life, and always to consider the welfare of the other, to be concerned of the other, to be compassionate and sensitive to the other, so that you're always giving a consideration to the other rather than always thinking about yourself, no? Your victory and your glory, etc., etc. Because the idea today, in the so-called postmodern world, no, the tendency to abuse, the tendency to be angry, to be easily reactive is so, I mean, the world when I was young compared to now, I think, I don't want to make any judgment regarding generations, but today's generation, today's young people are, I think, because of the influence of technology, are very prone to to reacting very immediately. Their knee-jerk reaction, no? Sometimes without even introspection and reflection, and that's when bullying and abusing and can really result in violence. And that's where chaplains can really play an important role to guide and to provide certain ways by which young people begin to always view the other rather than always their own view, their own perspective. But as to your specific question, I think it's a very important question that PSC should consider. Is there, in fact, Josh, I don't know who's answering this for the PSC Commission, is there any program or is there any plan that would make integral the idea of developing chaplains for different sports groups, communities in the country?
All right.
With regard to your Joash.
Sige po. I think we can have this time to call our PSC Commissioner Charles Maxey. He's here po with us para po at least to also give an information for everyone. Com, would you like to share something? Com Charles? Hello. Team, can you spotlight si Commissioner? There you go, Com. Baka po meron po kayong gustong i-add dun sa relation. Go ahead, Com.
Thank you, Joas. Good afternoon, Brother Carl,
Hello.
Neil, and to all participants. Dito sa Philippine Sports Commission, we have an activity, our grassroots program, part of our grassroots program, which we conduct children's games in cooperation with different churches in Catholic schools. We did this in Davao City, mostly in Mindanao. Kasi nga, sports is not only about physical and mental well-being. Of course, andyan din yung spirituality ng aspect ng ating mga kabataan. So, we really push for the children's games in cooperation ng ating mga simbahan na Brother Carl. Kasi nga, hindi lang naman tayo puro lang sports. So, isa yung sa mga programa ng ating pamalaan, ng ating ahensya. As to the question naman of Neil doon sa mga chaplain, why it's a good idea. Why not? In the near future siguro, pwede nating gawin yun para naman talagang mag-guide yung ating mga atleta. Hindi lang mga atleta, pati yung ating mga kabataan na magiging atleta din someday. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Charles. We'll get back on com later, no? At I think Ms. Ayang will entertain our last question.
Yes, thank you, from Charles. Our last live question will be coming from DepEd Butuan City, Sir Christopher Hammer. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon po. Thank you po. I think Grand Slam na ito for 3 consecutive na Wednesday. But really, a concern lang po talaga. Very interesting topic po. Talking about yung religion, the ethnic, our ethnicity, and then in relation to sports. Before I was going to give my concern po, ma'am, can I share a little input? In the Summer Olympic of 1924, there was an athlete, a Scottish athlete in the name of Eric Liddell, who is a favorite athlete in athletics 100-meter sprint. He is expected to win gold during that Summer Olympic. However, he did not run the said event simply because it was conducted on a Sunday. Hindi po siya tumakbo dahil it was on a Sunday. He believed that on a Sunday, it is a consecrated day of worship for his belief or his faith sa kanilang church. He did not join. He is expected to win. That is his favorite event. He did not join. In the weekdays, he ran the 400-meter sprint, and in that way, he was able to give gold medal for the British Empire, for the British in that competition against the very favorite athletes of the United States. My concern po is this: we really have some elite athletes who are very particular with their faith, with their religion, who consecrate a day for worship. It could be on a Sunday, and for others, for our Muslim brothers and Seventh-day Adventists, they consecrate Saturday for worship. However, there are sports activity being done during that particular day. And there are really students who have, or athletes who have a strong faith and belief, who will not compromise in giving up their worship day. So therefore, they will rather give up the sports and prefer their faith. There are also other sport enthusiasts who prefer to be in sports and compromise their faith or their worship. Ang concern ko po to my DepEd family na nandito, it is really evident po, and we experience that we have athletes who have a very consecrated day of worship and they don't want to compromise. They were elite, and we already experienced that this athlete will rather go out of the team, will not go with us in the Palarong Pambansa, will not go with us in the regional meet, simply because they are not willing to compromise giving up their worship day on a Saturday or a Sunday. Ang concern ko po lang ganito, sir, how serious is our commission, or even in the DepEd as part of this particular concern, to give prior or important attention to this governing issue. We cannot deny the presence of business and politics in sports nowadays. It really, may mga sports activity talaga. Even Palarong Pangbansa is being open on a Saturday, on a Sunday. And there are sporting activities in DepEd schedule on a Saturday and Sunday. They don't want to disturb the academic days. But in as much as these issues is concerned, very interesting, can there be someone in the higher office, a commissioner in sports, to give a particular concern in this particular na issue, that we really have athletes who are very potential, and yet they will not give up their conviction, their faith, and their stand about their religion. Yun lang po, sir. How do we deal with this, or what's the best regard we can favor or give to our athletes who are elite supposed to be, who are very good in sports, and yet they will not sacrifice their consecrated day for worship as part of this what we call religious freedom and exercises. Ano po?
Well, I cannot make any comment on that insofar as decisions are made. But you know,
management siguro, sir.
I'm a religious brother, and in fact, this is not isolated. No, I mean there have been movies. I think there was this very popular film, Chariots of Fire. He belonged to an evangelical group. It was meant for the Olympics, and the same story that he didn't want to run. on a Saturday or Sunday. But I mean, as I said, I'm a religious brother, and I'd be the first to say, in this country we have freedom of religion, and people have a right to the expression of their religion. But I don't know. You can't force people, no, who are so strictly adhering to their religious doctrine, and would, as you said, sacrifice their athletic career so as not to violate whatever are the teachings of their church. And therefore, I don't know, is there a way out of that kind of a situation? But on the other hand, the reality of life is that Saturday and Sundays are also the days that are just perfect for games. No, I mean, that's how life is. The weekend, this is day of rest for Sunday, and as you said, business, politics, and so on would favor those days rather than between Monday to Friday. So I know it's a tension that, and I don't know, the PSC will now make a comment on that.
With the DepEd
Jo-
po sana.
Joas,
The DepEd,
Arian, Joas,
Yes po, Com. Go ahead, Com.
may I comment? May I comment?
Yes po, Com. Go
Yes,
ahead.
sir. We want to hear from you, sir.
Yes, Chris, thank you for that question. Actually, coming to PSC back in 2016, I still have to know, or I still have not yet encountered this kind of dilemma wherein our participants, especially in PSC projects, would not like to run on a Sunday or a Saturday. The story of Eric Liddell, of course, talagang isa lang ang klaro sa kanya na gusto niyang i-emphasize. Running is only secondary to his faith. And that's important to him. Maybe, of course, in our agency, the moment we encounter events like this or circumstances like this, we really have to respect religion. To respect the faith of this athlete, whoever he or she is, as long as we put forward our programs, of course, in consonant with the belief and the faith of the athletes, we cannot go against their faith, of course.
Yes.
And even your question is, of course, sometimes hard to answer. But as far as I'm concerned, we will not go against the faith of an athlete if she or he does not want to run on a Sunday, or
Yes, po.
does not want to compete on a Sunday. Thank you for that question.
Thank you po.
All right, there you have it. Yan po ang ating last question for this afternoon. I just want to thank ang ating pong guest speaker, Brother Carl Gaspar, and also, syempre, ang ating PSC Commissioner Charles Maxey na I was surprised, no? Familiar din pala si Com dito sa story that was given to us. And thank you very much again sa ating pong mga participants for these actively participating for this open forum. Ito po yung gusto nating mangyari, ganito pong klaseng conversation, no. We want you to know about your insights and views as well. Pag-exchange po tayo ng ideas together. And tayo man po ay limited and bound by time restrictions. Alam po natin na yung mga questions po ninyo are needed to be answered too. Kaya po, for those questions that were not answered, lahat po ito will be included in our data processing. Kaya po walang data that will be wasted and everything will be turned over sa atin pong research. We will now take this time to honor and award the Certificate of Appreciation to our 19th speaker for our National Sports Summit 2021, Phase 1. And to award the certificate, may I call again our PSC Commissioner, Charles Maxey. Take it away. Come.
Before I award this, Joas, the Philippine Sports Commission, headed by our chairman, William I. Ramirez, expresses our gratitude to Brother Carl for your time, for sharing your time this afternoon po, Brother Carl, and of course to our participants. This certificate of appreciation is presented to Brother Carlito Carl Gaspar for his invaluable contribution as a resource speaker for the Religion, Ethics, and Sports session of Sports Conversations, the first phase of the National Sports Summit 2021. given this 23rd day of June via Zoom. Signed, William I. Ramirez, Chairman, Philippine Sports Commission.
Maraming
Thank you
salamat
very
po.
much. Maraming salamat.
Thank you very much.
Maraming salamat, Brother Carl. We really
Thank you.
appreciate your effort and your time po this afternoon po.